Ever wonder how being left for dead could become your greatest blessing? In the freezing mountains of China, betrayal turned into destiny when a group of so-called friends abandoned Mia in an avalanche. But fate had other plans. Instead of finding death in that icy tomb, she discovered an ancient jade pendant and a mystical guide named Master Li, setting off a journey that would transform her from a heartbroken ex into one of Asia's most powerful business figures. Now, years later, Mia's back. Not as the broken girl they left behind, but as a billionaire with the resources and resolve to make her betrayers pay. One by one, she'll watch them fall, starting with her ex Daniel and his new girlfriend Lisa. But revenge isn't always sweet, and some wounds cut deeper than anyone could imagine. This isn't just another revenge story. It's a tale of survival, ancient magic, and discovering that sometimes your worst moment can lead to your greatest triumph. Want to find out how Mia turns from victim to victor? How she builds an empire while bringing her enemies to their knees? And most importantly, what happens when she finally confronts those who left her for dead? Stay tuned for an incredible story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. If you love tales of revenge, redemption, and a touch of the supernatural, you won't want to miss a single minute. Hit that like button, subscribe to join our storytelling family, and share with friends who appreciate a good revenge plot with an unexpected twist. Let's dive into this unforgettable journey together. I keep replaying that moment in my head, wondering what possessed me to accept Daniel's invitation. His words had dripped like honey when he asked, casual, warm, inviting, as if the last 6 months hadn't left me crying myself to sleep. As if he hadn't replaced me with Lisa, his shiny new girlfriend, and then had the audacity to suggest we all go hiking together in the remote Chinese mountains. "It'll be amazing," he'd promised, flashing that charming smile that once made my heart skip beats. "The views are incredible, and Lisa's really excited to spend time with you." I knew better, of course. This wasn't about friendship or healing old wounds. This was Daniel's way of showing the world how evolved he was, how wonderfully he and Lisa had blossomed while I was left behind. Yet somehow, my mouth formed the word yes before my brain could stop it. Now here we were, climbing through terrain that belonged on postcards, majestic snow-capped peaks piercing clouds, valleys so deep they seemed to swallow shadows whole. But I couldn't lose myself in nature's beauty, not with Lisa's judgmental glances burning holes in my back, and the rest of the group whispering and snickering like we were back in high school. Connor, with his perpetually smug face, kept throwing verbal jabs my way. "Having trouble keeping up, Mia?" The urge to shove him off the nearest cliff grew stronger with each comment. My lungs were on fire, my muscles screaming in protest, but I'd rather eat rocks than show any weakness, especially when they'd already labeled me as the misfit, the ex who couldn't let go. Ahead of me, Daniel and Lisa played the perfect couple, his arm draped possessively around her shoulders. Her laughter echoed off the mountains, each note a reminder of everything I'd lost. I kept asking myself why I was here, trudging through this emotional minefield disguised as a hiking trip. Was I trying to prove something? If so, to whom? The questions swirled in my mind, as bitter as the cold air around us. The change came without warning. First, it was just wind, sharp and angry, carrying an otherworldly howl that made the hairs on my neck stand up. Then the sky transformed, bright blue vanishing under an avalanche of dark clouds. I saw the concern flash across Daniel's face, that familiar crinkle between his eyebrows he could never quite hide. "Storm's moving in," he announced, his forced casualness fooling no one. "We should turn back," I suggested, hugging myself against the biting cold. Lisa's patronizing smile made my blood boil. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Mia. It's just a bit of weather." But nature had other plans. Within minutes, snow was falling so thick we could barely see 3 feet ahead. The group's earlier bravado melted away as quickly as our visibility. Each step became a battle against both the elements and our growing fear. Something in the air felt wrong, dangerous, like the mountain itself was warning us to leave. The snow was relentless, building up like quicksand around our legs. Daniel's voice cut through the storm, commanding us to keep moving, but his words were almost lost in the wind's fury. That's when I felt it, a vibration deep in my bones, a sound so primal it made my instincts scream. The mountain was awakening, and we were in its path. The avalanche didn't roar, it screamed. A wall of white death cascaded down, moving faster than my mind could process. One moment I was standing, the next I was caught in nature's washing machine, tumbling through a world of white. My body slammed against something hard, then everything went still. The silence was absolute, broken only by the thundering of my heart. I was entombed in ice, the snow pressing against me like a frozen straitjacket. As my oxygen depleted, memories flooded in. Not the happy ones you're supposed to see before dying, but the bitter pills I'd been forced to swallow. Daniel's voice echoed in my head, clinical and detached. "You're just not what I'm looking for anymore." I remembered Lisa's perfectly manicured hand on his arm at our favorite cafe, marking her territory. The whispers and snickers from people I thought were friends, their mockery barely concealed behind paper-thin politeness. The worst part? Through the packed snow, I could hear them. Their voices carried through my frozen prison, each word a fresh betrayal. "She's gone! We need to get out of here!" The casual dismissal of my life hurt more than the cold. No search party, no desperate attempts to dig me out. Just the sound of them abandoning me to my frozen grave. Then something inside me snapped. A voice, my voice, screamed in my head. "Like hell, I'm dying here." I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of being right about me. I wasn't going to be their tragic story, the cautionary tale they'd tell at parties. That's when I felt it. A whisper of warmth against my frozen skin. So faint, I thought hypothermia was playing tricks on my mind. But there it was again, accompanied by a golden glow that seemed to pierce through the snow's suffocating blanket. With every ounce of strength left in my battered body, I fought toward that light, ignoring the screaming protests of my muscles. The moment I burst through the snow's surface was like being born again, each desperate breath a victory. As I staggered forward on trembling legs, I saw it, a cave mouth in the mountainside, raw and ancient. But it was what came from within that made me question my sanity. A pulsing golden light, rhythmic like a heartbeat, beckoning me forward with promises of warmth and secrets. Something about that light felt alive, aware, as if the mountain itself had decided to shelter me from death's cold embrace. The cave beckoned, and I followed without hesitation. Anything was better than freezing to death outside. The moment I stepped inside, the howling storm became a distant memory, replaced by an otherworldly stillness. The walls weren't just rock. They were a canvas of ancient stories, etched with symbols and figures that danced in the golden light. Each carving seemed alive, as if trying to whisper secrets in a language lost to time. There, bathed in an ethereal glow, sat a small jade pendant on a weathered stone pedestal. It wasn't particularly flashy, just an intricate design carved into green stone, but something about it pulled at me, like a magnet drawing north. Before I could stop myself, my fingers brushed its smooth surface. The world exploded in light. When my vision cleared, I wasn't alone anymore. A figure stood before me, a man, but not quite. His form rippled like silk underwater, traditional robes floating in an invisible breeze. He was both there and not there, solid yet transparent, like a dream made half real. Who are you?" My voice echoed against the ancient walls. "I am Master Li." His voice carried the weight of centuries, calm as still water, but powerful as a rushing river. "And you, child, have found what generations have sought." He smiled, the kind of smile that made you feel like you were part of something bigger than yourself, something ancient and important. I stood there, probably looking like a drowned rat, trying to process what I was seeing. Was this hypothermia? A near-death hallucination? But those eyes of his, they were too real, too knowing. They saw right through me, past all my carefully constructed walls, straight to the core of who I was. "The Jade Legacy," he explained, gesturing to the pendant I still clutched. Not merely a piece of stone, but a key to treasures beyond imagination, guarded for centuries, waiting for the right soul to claim them. His words should have sounded ridiculous, like something from a bad fantasy movie, but in that moment, surrounded by ancient magic, I believed him. Me? I almost laughed. I'm just me, the girl who got dumped, who everyone left behind. I'm not special. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. Master Li's expression softened, but his eyes remained intense. "You survived when others would have perished. You found this place when others passed it by. That is not chance, Mia. That is destiny." He paused, his form shimmering. "Strength isn't measured by how confident you feel, but by the steps you take when all paths seem impossible." His words hit me like a physical force. I thought about everything that had brought me here, the breakup, the humiliation, the avalanche. I had survived it all, not because I was fearless or special, but because I refused to give up. Maybe that was its own kind of strength. Looking back at my life's wreckage, Daniel's betrayal, fake friends, and now surviving nature's fury, I realized something. Maybe I wasn't their kind of strong, but I was still standing. "All right," I said, gripping the pendant tighter. "What's next?" Master Li's smile deepened like he'd been waiting centuries for this question. "First, safety. Then, your journey begins." While the blizzard raged outside like an angry spirit, our cave remained a pocket of supernatural warmth and silence. Master Li drifted to the entrance, his form barely distinguishable from the swirling snow beyond. Something had been nagging at my mind. "Are you actually here? Physically?" I asked. His response was a chuckle that echoed with ancient wisdom. "My physical form returned to dust long ago, but my essence, that's as real as the pendant in your hand. In time, you'll understand." It wasn't the clearest answer, but beggars caught in blizzards can't be choosers. Every muscle screamed as I followed him into the storm, the jade pendant now feeling warm against my palm despite the freezing temperature. Master Li glided across the snow like a ghost ship on calm seas, while I struggled not to sink. "There," he'd say occasionally, pointing to seemingly random spots. Each time I stepped where he indicated, I found solid footing instead of treacherous snow. As we traveled, he shared the mountain's secrets, how to read the wind's warnings, spot dangerous ice beneath innocent snow, use rock formations as natural shelters. His knowledge flowed like an endless river. "Why me?" I finally asked, my voice barely audible over the wind. "Why help me?" "The pendant chose you, the first in centuries," he replied without turning. "My duty is to guide its chosen bearer." Classic cryptic master response. And what exactly am I chosen for? Silence. Just the wind answering with its hollow howls. By the time we reached the village, a collection of traditional wooden houses that looked like they belonged in a history book, my legs were rubber and my mind was soup. Smoke rose from stone chimneys in lazy spirals, and paper lanterns glowed like earthbound stars through the dying storm. "You've reached sanctuary," Master Li said, his voice suddenly distant. The villagers emerged from their homes like cautious deer, their faces showing equal parts worry and wonder. They rushed to help, wrapping me in thick blankets and ushering me into the nearest house. A grandmother type pressed a bowl of soup into my trembling hands, its steam carrying the promise of warmth and life. I looked around for Master Li. but he had vanished like morning mist. "Wait, where's the man who brought me here?" I asked the woman. She frowned in confusion. "The one who guided me down the mountain," I insisted, unconsciously clutching the jade pendant. She just shook her head, bewilderment clear in her eyes. The implications of her response sent chills down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Maybe I wasn't just chosen. Maybe I was part of something much bigger than a simple rescue. The pendant pulsed warmly against my skin, as if confirming my thoughts. "You came down the mountain alone," the woman insisted. The word alone echoed in my head, but the warm jade pendant told a different story. It pulsed gently in my palm, like a tiny heartbeat, as if saying, "You're not alone at all." The villagers took me in, treating me like a long-lost daughter, but we all knew this wasn't my final destination. 3 nights later, as I sat watching flames dance in the hearth, Master Li materialized beside me. "Your time here is done," he said, his presence as natural as breathing now. "The House of Li awaits." I'd been expecting this, but my heart still skipped. "The keepers of your legacy?" He nodded, his form shimmering in the firelight. "For centuries they've waited for someone worthy to return with the pendant. Now, you must seek them out." The weight of his words pressed against my chest. "And then?" I asked, though I suspected his answer. "That is not for me to say. The pendant opens doors, but what lies beyond them depends on you." Classic Master Li, always making me figure things out myself. When I asked about finding them, a knowing smile crossed his ethereal face. "The House of Li stands among China's elite in the capital. Their wealth and power are considerable. But remember, their respect must be earned, just as you earned mine." Looking into the fire, I made my decision. "I'm ready." Those 2 words felt like signing a contract with destiny. The trip to the capital was like stepping into another world. Master Li's presence never wavered, his voice a compass pointing true north through mazes of unfamiliar streets and bustling markets. "Trust your path," he'd whisper whenever doubt crept in. And somehow, those simple words were enough. The pendant seemed to grow warmer with each step toward our destination, as if eager to return home. Something had fundamentally changed inside me since that day on the mountain. The old Mia, the one who defined herself by Daniel's rejection, was melting away like spring snow. In her place stood someone new, someone with purpose. The grief and humiliation that once consumed me now felt distant, replaced by an electric sense of anticipation. Beijing sprawled before me like a city caught between centuries, glass towers piercing the clouds while ancient temples guarded their shadows. From my hotel window, the city glowed like a sea of stars, each light a story waiting to be discovered. "There," Master Li said, his reflection overlapping mine in the window. "The House of Li dwells among those lights." Finding them proved challenging, even with a ghost as my guide. Master Li preferred teaching through riddles and hints rather than direct answers. "The journey matters as much as the destination," he'd say, which was probably profound but mostly frustrating. Still, each clue I solved felt like another step towards something bigger than myself. The pendant grew warmer against my skin, as if responding to its family's proximity. Sometimes I caught it glowing softly in the dark, like it was trying to light my way home. Following Master Li's cryptic breadcrumbs wasn't easy. "Your journey is part of the test," he'd say whenever I begged for clearer directions. So I became a detective, piecing together fragments of the Li family puzzle. I haunted ancient tea houses where elderly patrons traded whispers over steaming cups. I dug through yellowed newspapers and caught snippets of conversations that went quiet when I got too close. All trails led to one name: the House of Li, a family whose influence seemed to touch every corner of the city. Their estate took my breath away. It wasn't just a home, it was a statement of power spanning centuries. Modern security cameras peeked out from behind traditional dragon sculptures, and carefully manicured gardens surrounded a mansion that bridged past and present. My hand instinctively found the pendant under my jacket, its warmth giving me courage. "Remember," Master Li's voice floated beside me, "they've spent generations waiting for what you carry. Let the pendant speak its own truth." Somehow my request for an audience was granted. Walking through those massive doors felt like stepping into history itself. The Great Hall could have been plucked from an imperial palace. Carved dragons danced across wooden beams, and ancient scrolls told stories I couldn't read but felt in my bones. At the room's heart sat Patriarch Li, and one look into those razor-sharp eyes told me why he led this powerful family. Age had touched his hair, but not his spirit. "State your purpose," he commanded, each word measured and precise. My mouth went dry, but I forced myself to speak. "I'm Mia. Master Li guided me here." The name hit like a thunderclap in the quiet room. Patriarch Li's posture shifted ever so slightly. "Master Li?" His voice carried a warning. "Few dare speak that name in these halls." "Show him," Master Li whispered, and I drew out the pendant. The reaction was immediate and electric. The very air seemed to hum with energy. Patriarch Li's transformation was stunning. The stern patriarch melted away, replaced by a man seeing a dream made real. His hands shook as he reached for it, like a man touching a miracle. "The key of the ancestors," he breathed, holding the pendant as if it might shatter. After all these centuries, emotion made his voice rough. With trembling fingers, he pressed a button, summoning his family. They poured in like a river, children, grandchildren, each generation of the Li dynasty gathering to witness history. "For 1,000 years, our family has guarded a promise," Patriarch Li announced, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We've waited for the pendant's return, for the one worthy to carry our legacy forward." He turned to me, and in his eyes I saw the weight of generations. "Come, Mia. The time has finally arrived." The pendant glowed softly between us, and somewhere in the room, I felt Master Li's presence smile. The Li family led me deep beneath their estate, down stairs that seemed to spiral into time itself. We stopped before a door that took my breath away. Intricate carvings danced across its surface, matching the mysterious symbols from the mountain cave. My hands trembled as I fitted the pendant into a circular depression at the door's heart. The click it made echoed like destiny, and the ancient door swung open with a sound like a sleeping giant's sigh. What lay beyond defied imagination. The vault was a treasure hunter's fever dream. Mountains of gold coins caught the light like frozen flames. Precious gems winked from velvet-lined displays, and artifacts that radiated age-old power lined the walls. Ancient scrolls, delicate as butterfly wings, held secrets in their carefully preserved characters. "Behold," Patriarch Li's voice swelled with ancestral pride, "the true legacy of the Li clan." His hand swept across the chamber. "For centuries, we've guarded these treasures from those who would abuse their power. Your arrival marks a new chapter in our history." The question that had haunted me since the mountain finally burst free. But why me? What makes me special? Patriarch Li's weathered hand found my shoulder, his touch grandfatherly and wise. The pendant chooses its bearer with ancient wisdom. It recognized in you what others failed to see: unbreakable strength, the courage to rise when others fall, a spirit that refuses to break. Tears blurred my vision. After months of feeling worthless, discarded, here was a family of strangers seeing worth in me that my own friends had missed. The irony wasn't lost on me. "This vault holds more than mere wealth," Patriarch Li continued, gesturing to the treasures surrounding us. "These are tools for building futures, for changing lives. Our ancestors preserved them not for glory, but for the right moment and the right person to use them wisely." Later, sitting at the Li family's massive dining table, the reality of my transformation hit me. The table groaned under platters that looked like edible art, and laughter bounced off walls where priceless scrolls hung like silent witnesses to centuries of family gatherings. Just weeks ago, I'd been freezing on a mountainside, abandoned by people I thought cared about me. Now I was being welcomed into one of China's most powerful families as one of their own. "You are now written into our story," Patriarch Li had declared while returning the pendant, its familiar warmth welcome against my palm. "Your journey is our journey now." The younger Li family members surprised me most. Instead of the stuck-up rich kids I'd expected, they were warm, curious, and genuine. The pendant pulsed gently against my chest, reminding me that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't the ones locked in vaults, but the connections we forge when life forces us to start again. "So did you really see his spirit?" May asked over dinner, leaning forward with teenage enthusiasm, her chopsticks forgotten mid-air. The other young Li cousins crowded closer, hungry for details about my mountain miracle. I found myself smiling, the pendant warm against my skin as if amused by their curiosity. "Let's just say I had a very special guide," I answered, catching a glimpse of Master Li's shimmer in the corner of my eye. The Li family didn't just adopt me, they invested in me. What started as casual conversations over tea evolved into deep dives into their vast business empire. I discovered a world where ancient wisdom met modern commerce, sustainable skyscrapers built with feng shui principles, tech startups preserving traditional arts through AI, luxury brands that honored centuries-old craftsmanship. One afternoon, walking among blooming cherry blossoms in the family garden, Patriarch Li shared something that changed my perspective. "Money is just paper," he said, watching koi swim lazy circles in an ancient pond. "True wealth lies in what you build with it." Our ancestors understood this. They didn't hoard power. They multiplied it by helping others rise. The vault's treasures became my starting point. Each artifact, each gold bar, represented not just value, but potential. Master Li's voice would come to me in quiet moments, especially during tough decisions. "Look deeper," he'd whisper when I reviewed investment proposals. "See what others miss." I started small, testing the waters with careful investments. A sustainable housing project here, a tech startup revolutionizing traditional medicine there. Each venture was chosen with purpose, weighing not just profit, but impact. The Li family's network opened doors, but it was the pendant's warmth against my skin that gave me confidence to walk through them. Success followed success. It was almost uncanny. Every investment turned golden. Every project exceeded expectations. People started noticing. The business world buzzed with rumors about the mysterious newcomer who had the Li family's backing and an almost supernatural instinct for successful ventures. The transformation was profound. At galas where I'd once hugged the walls, I now commanded attention. The same networking events where I'd felt invisible became my stage. But the sweetest moment came when I overheard someone at a charity auction say, "That's Mia from the Li Consortium," without a single mention of Daniel or my past. I wasn't just accumulating wealth, I was building something bigger. Each successful venture added another thread to a web of influence that stretched across industries and borders. The pendant seemed to hum with approval every time I closed a deal that balanced profit with purpose. The irony wasn't lost on me. Being left for dead on that mountain had led me to more life than I'd ever imagined. Every now and then, I'd catch Master Li's reflection in my office window, his smile as enigmatic as ever, and I'd remember that sometimes the worst moments in our lives are just doorways to something extraordinary. The whispers of my success echoed through the corporate halls like ripples in a pond. At a bustling conference, a CEO leaned in close, his designer watch glinting under the chandeliers. "What's your secret?" he asked, envy dancing in his eyes. I touched the jade pendant at my throat, feeling its familiar warmth. "Hard work," I replied, with a knowing smile, while the ancient spirit's whispers tickled my ear like a gentle breeze. Some secrets were best kept hidden after all. Looking in my mirror each morning became like watching a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis. The timid Mia who once stammered in meetings had vanished, replaced by someone who commanded respect with a mere glance. My transformation wasn't just skin deep. Designer suits and perfect makeup were merely the wrapping paper. The real gift was the steel in my spine and the fire in my eyes. The boardroom became my stage, and I, its leading performer. Every negotiation was a dance, every deal a carefully orchestrated symphony. I learned to read people like books, to spot lies in the twitch of a lip, to sense weakness in a hesitant handshake. The Lee family's nickname for me, the Phoenix, felt fitting. After all, hadn't I risen from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and more radiant than before? "You've changed," May observed one evening, finding me buried in investment papers. The lamp cast long shadows across my study, and her words hung in the air like mist. When I asked if that was good, her response carried the weight of truth. "You're still kind, despite having power. That's rare." Her words burrowed deep into my heart, becoming a mantra I would carry forward. Master Lee's teachings became my moral compass in a world where ethics often took a backseat to profit. Balance, he had taught me, is not just standing steady, it's moving forward without losing your soul. I held these lessons close, even as my influence grew beyond what that scared young woman could have imagined. My empire bloomed like a garden after rain, diverse, thriving, and ever-growing. The Lee family remained my bedrock, but this was no longer just their story or their legacy. I had transformed their vault's treasure into something grander, a network of businesses that spanned continents, a reputation that opened doors before I even knocked, and most importantly, a purpose that burned brighter than revenge. Yet success didn't ease the weight of memory. The mountain's cold bite still haunted my dreams, and the faces of those who betrayed me, Daniel, Lisa, and their cohorts, remained sharp as broken glass in my mind. They had stripped everything from me once, thinking they'd left me for dead. But they didn't understand that sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation, it's success. Still, a part of me knew this chapter of my story wasn't finished. Not yet. Master Lee's wisdom floated through my thoughts like autumn leaves in the wind. Your destiny is not just to rise, but to confront what brought you here. The truth of his words settled in my bones. After all these years, it was time to face my past. Time to go home. The morning sun painted my private jet in shades of gold as it touched down. Standing on the tarmac, I watched my hometown's skyline pierce the horizon, a place that once held my dreams, then my nightmares, and now my reckoning. The city had changed, or perhaps I had. The streets that once made me feel small now seemed to bow before my presence. The Lee family had pushed to send an army with me, bodyguards, assistants, even a PR team. "You're one of us now," they'd insisted. But this was my battle to fight. Still, I couldn't stop the wildfire of gossip that spread through the city's elite circles. "Have you heard?" they whispered. A mysterious billionaire with connections to old Chinese money. It was amusing how the same people who once looked through me now strained their necks to catch a glimpse. Invitations flooded my temporary office like confetti after a parade. Each envelope carried the weight of status and desperation to be seen with the season's most intriguing new player. Among them, one caught my eye, a charity gala, the kind where Daniel and Lisa loved to parade their success. Perfect. The ballroom was exactly as I remembered, a stage where the wealthy performed their carefully choreographed dance of influence. Crystal chandeliers dripped light like honey, champagne bubbles floated like dreams, and the air was thick with expensive perfume and ambition. My entrance caused a ripple in the carefully maintained social pool. Heads turned, conversations paused, eyes widened. I had chosen my armor carefully, a black dress that whispered wealth rather than screamed it, jewelry that spoke of old money connections, and an air of authority that no designer could replicate. This wasn't the Mia they remembered, the one who tried so hard to blend in. This Mia commanded attention without asking for it. And then I saw them, like characters frozen in a photograph I'd been carrying for years. Daniel and Lisa at the bar, their laughter a performance for their audience. Lisa clung to Daniel's arm like a lifeline, but I could see the cracks in her facade, the slight tremor in her fingers, the too bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marriage to Daniel had taught her what I learned years ago. Nothing in his world was ever truly secure. When Daniel's eyes met mine across the room, time seemed to stumble. The confident smile he wore slipped from his face like water. "Mia," he breathed, my name falling from his lips like a confession. Lisa spun around, her champagne sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her glass. Her face performed a dance of emotions, confusion, recognition, and finally, fear. You're alive?" The words tumbled from their lips like dropped crystal. I offered them a cat-like smile, savoring the moment like fine wine. "Did you think I wouldn't be?" The question hung in the air between us, sharp as a blade. Daniel switched masks faster than a stage actor, slipping into that honey-sweet charm that had once made my young heart flutter. "Of course not. It's just, you've been gone so long and now—" He gestured vaguely at my transformation, words failing him for perhaps the first time in his life. The smooth-talking Daniel, finally speechless. How delicious. While Daniel floundered, Lisa seemed to shrink before my eyes, guilt weighing on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. I'm so sorry," she whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. I let her apology float away unanswered, turning my attention back to Daniel, who was already trying to spin his web of charm. "You look incredible," he purred, flashing that $1,000,000 smile that had opened so many doors for him. "I've heard about your success. Quite the rise, huh? Maybe we could—" "We could what, Daniel?" I cut through his words like scissors through silk. "Pretend the past didn't happen? Pretend you didn't leave me to die?" Color drained from his face as if someone had pulled a plug. Lisa's eyes pinballed between us, her perfectly manicured hands fidgeting with her champagne glass. It wasn't like that, Mia," Lisa stammered, but I silenced her with a raised hand. "You thought I was dead," I finished, my voice precise as a surgeon's scalpel. "And that made it easier, didn't it? Easier to leave me behind, easier to forget." The truth landed like punches, and I watched them absorb each blow. By the time the string quartet played their final note, the gala's gossip mill was churning at full speed. My public confrontation with Daniel and Lisa had given the socialites enough fodder to last months. But this was just the opening act. The next morning, I launched my real assault. Daniel's company, once his pride and joy, had been wobbling like a house of cards for months. My team had excavated every weakness, mismanaged resources, dangerous debt levels, and a trail of investment disasters that read like a what not to do in business school. The killing blow came wrapped in a business deal. Using the Lee family's connections and my own hard-earned reputation, I crafted an irresistible offer for Daniel's biggest client, a tech company that had been carrying his firm's balance sheet. They jumped ship eagerly, like rats from a sinking vessel. The business world exploded with the news. "Mystery billionaire claims major victory in surprise takeover," screamed the headlines. Daniel's company started hemorrhaging value faster than a stabbed artery. Investors fled, stocks crumbled, and in the midst of this beautiful chaos, my phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen, a desperate man's last grasp at salvation. I watched my phone ring until Daniel's name faded to black. Silence can speak volumes, and I wanted him to hear every word. At the next society event, I found him transformed. His trademark confidence had crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. He ambushed me by the entrance, desperation leaking from every pore. Mia! His voice carried the same false warmth he'd once used to charm me, but now it cracked at the edges. We need to talk. I met his plea with an arched eyebrow. About what? He darted nervous glances around us like a cornered animal before dropping his voice to a whisper. The client. Everything. You can't seriously want to ruin me? A glacier of a smile froze on my face. Can't I? His jaw clenched like a fist, but years of schmoozing had taught him to mask pain with politeness. We can work something out. You've made your point, but there's no need to go further. I leaned close enough to smell his expensive cologne, my voice soft as silk but sharp as steel. Daniel, I'm just getting started. The fear that flashed across his face was sweeter than any champagne in the room. I'd expected revenge to taste bitter, like medicine you force yourself to swallow. But watching my carefully laid plans unfold felt like conducting a symphony of justice. Each move precise, each consequence calculated, creating a masterpiece of retribution. Daniel's empire was built on quicksand, all flash, no foundation. After claiming his star client, I started pulling threads, watching his whole operation unravel. The skeletons in his corporate closet were practically dancing. Cooked books, phantom profits, deals that existed only on paper. One quiet word with the right regulator, and the dominoes began to fall. The media feasted on the scandal like hungry wolves. Fraud allegations rock industry giant, screamed the headlines. Investors flee as investigation deepens, declared another. Daniel's company deflated like a punctured balloon, leaving nothing but empty offices and shattered dreams. Connor was next on my list. His real estate empire was a house of cards, built on bribes, shortcuts, and safety violations. I didn't need to throw stones. I just needed to shine light in the right corners. Anonymous tips to journalists here, whispered concerns to regulators there, carefully documented evidence finding its way to crusading lawyers. The resulting explosion was spectacular. Connor's empire didn't just fall, it imploded. Lawsuits rained down like hail, each one exposing another layer of corruption. His properties were seized, his reputation atomized, his future prospects reduced to ashes. The others followed like dominoes, each one falling in their own unique way. I had studied their weaknesses like a master chess player, knowing exactly which pieces to move and when. Hidden debts, doctored documents, buried secrets, I unearthed them all, watching as each revelation sent another former friend tumbling from their pedestal. My revenge wasn't just about emptying bank accounts and toppling empires. I wanted them to face real consequences, to feel the cold hand of justice on their shoulders. The Lee family backed every move, their influence opening doors I hadn't known existed. Whenever my resolve wavered, Master Lee's wisdom steadied me. Calm and steady. Justice, not vengeance. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, those two words danced together until I couldn't tell them apart. Lisa cracked first. She appeared in my office one stormy afternoon, rain dripping from her designer coat like tears. The sight was almost poetic. Nature itself seemed to be washing away her perfect facade. The woman who once wore superiority like a crown now stood before me, broken and drowning in desperation. "Do you have a moment?" Her voice quivered like a leaf in autumn. I settled back in my leather chair, arms crossed, playing the role of the untouchable executive she'd once pretended to be. "What do you want, Lisa?" Her manicured fingers tortured her purse strap as she struggled to find words. "I've lost everything," she whispered, as if saying it quietly would make it less true. I watched her, unmoved, like a statue observing a storm. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she continued, tears spilling down her cheeks, smearing what remained of her mascara. "What we did was unforgivable. But please, Mia, I need you to know. I wanted to go back for you that day on the mountain. And yet," I cut in, each word sharp as an icicle, "you didn't." She crumpled inward like a paper doll in rain. Daniel convinced us it was too dangerous, she stammered, desperation making her honest. He said you were already gone. I believed him because I was terrified. I didn't want to die up there. Her confession hung in the air between us, heavy with truth I hadn't expected. She inched closer, her voice thick with years of buried guilt. Every single day since then, I've thought about what happened. About you. The guilt. It's eaten me alive, Mia. I wish I could turn back time. I studied her like a complex equation, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to believe she'd been another pawn in Daniel's game of manipulation. But the survivor in me, the one who'd fought through snow and darkness and rebuilt herself from nothing, wasn't ready to offer absolution. Do you know what it was like? My voice came out soft, but carried the weight of an avalanche. Lisa stood frozen, tears tracking silent paths down her face. Can you imagine waking up buried in snow, death breathing down your neck, realizing that the people you trusted, your friends, had decided you weren't worth the effort to save? She shook her head, her bottom lip trembling like a child's. Some wounds, I was learning, never stop bleeding. They just wait for the right moment to reopen. I can't imagine, she began, but I sliced her words mid-air. No, you can't, I said, ice crystallizing around each syllable. You made sure of that, didn't you? Lisa's head dropped like a withered flower, guilt radiating from her in waves. I'm so sorry, Mia. I know it means nothing, but if there's anything I can do to make it right. I leaned forward, softening my voice just enough to make the words cut deeper. What exactly does making it right look like to you, Lisa? You think you can wave a magic wand and erase what happened? Undo the betrayal? Her composure shattered like fine china, sobs racking her body as she struggled to form words. I don't know, she choked out. I don't want you to hate me forever. The confession hung in the air between us. The truth was, I didn't hate her anymore. Hate required energy, attention, emotion, things I no longer wished to waste on her. Lisa was just a chapter in my story, not the whole book. I appreciate your honesty, I said finally, my voice as level as a frozen lake. But forgiveness isn't a gift I can wrap up and hand to you. It's not bought with pretty words. It's earned through actions. Lisa nodded, dabbing at her mascara-stained cheeks. I'll do whatever it takes. Rising from my chair, I wordlessly declared our meeting over. Then start by owning everything you did. She nodded again, gathering what remained of her dignity. Thank you, Mia, for listening at least. As the door closed behind her, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the first stone on that path. Later that afternoon, I prepared for Daniel's arrival. The boardroom I'd chosen was a masterpiece of modern design, all glass, chrome, and power. The perfect stage for our final act. I wanted him to feel like a peasant in a palace, to taste the bitter pill of powerlessness he'd once fed me. When he walked in, the mighty had already fallen. His designer suit, once a second skin, now hung on him like borrowed clothes. His trademark confidence had evaporated, leaving behind a shell of the man who'd once commanded rooms with a smile. Mia, he extended his hand, desperation masked with fake warmth. Thanks for meeting. I'm sure we can work something out. I stared at his offered hand like it was a dead fish. Sit, Daniel. The way he stumbled over such a simple command sent a delicious shiver of satisfaction through me. I let silence fill the room like smoke, watching him squirm under its weight. The wall clock's ticking became thunderous in the quiet. Finally, he cracked, letting out a forced laugh that sounded more like a plea. I have to admit, you've really made some waves. Didn't see it coming. But hey, we're both smart people. There's no reason this has to get ugly. Ugly? I sliced through his words like a blade through silk. Daniel, you left me to die on a mountain. The practiced smile slid from his face like melting snow. Mia, that's not fair. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? I leaned forward, each word a carefully aimed arrow. You made the choice, Daniel. You decided my life wasn't worth the effort. Then you went home to your comfortable world, telling yourself whatever pretty lies helped you sleep at night. He tried to speak, but I pressed on, my voice arctic. But that wasn't enough, was it? You had to make sure I stayed gone, used every chance to push me aside, take what was mine. You thought I'd stay buried, one way or another. Mia, it wasn't personal. Desperation cracked his voice like thin ice. It was a terrible situation. I had to make a call. I never wanted you hurt. A laugh escaped me, sharp as broken glass. Not personal? That's rich, Daniel. Tell me, did it feel not personal when I was fighting through snow and darkness, wondering why my friends had left me to die? He started to protest, but I silenced him with a raised hand. You don't get to play victim in this story. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire as Daniel squirmed under my steady gaze. When I finally spoke, my voice carried the calm of a predator before the strike. I'm not here for your apologies or excuses, Daniel. I'm here to end this. Confusion flickered across his face like a dying light. End what? I slid a folder across the polished table. Your company, your last lifeline, it's mine now. He stared at the folder as if it might bite. What are you talking about? Your investors? Gone. Your clients? Gone. Those few remaining assets you're clutching so desperately? All mine. I settled back, watching realization dawn on his face. You're finished, Daniel. His hands trembled as he opened the folder, eyes darting across pages that spelled his doom. The color drained from his face like water from a broken glass. You can't do this, he whispered. I already have. Mia, please, he begged, mask completely shattered. You've made your point. You've won. Don't take everything. I studied him like a curious specimen. Everything? Oh, Daniel, you don't know the first thing about losing everything, but you're about to learn. His desperation finally boiled over, and he slammed the folder shut with shaking hands. This is revenge, isn't it? You've spent years plotting this, planning to destroy me? I rose from my chair with fluid grace, circling the table like a wolf approaching wounded prey. Standing over Daniel, I watched his facade crumble completely. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in those eyes that had once charmed their way through life. What do you want, Mia? His voice cracked. Money? Power? Is that what this is about? A bitter smile touched my lips as I shook my head. What I want, Daniel, is for you to wake up every morning and face the consequences of your choices. You left me for dead on that mountain. I leaned closer, my voice barely above a whisper. Now I'm returning the favor, with one key difference. I'm letting you live. The silence that followed was absolute, heavy with the weight of karma finally delivered. Daniel sat frozen, a statue of his former self, as I walked away from the wreckage of his empire. The click of my heels against marble echoed through the corridor like a countdown to his new reality. Outside, the crisp air rushed into my lungs like the first breath after breaking through that snow years ago. The weight I'd carried since that day on the mountain, the betrayal, the pain, the burning need for justice, began to lift. Not because I'd brought Daniel to his knees, but because I'd finally stood tall on my own feet. This journey had never really been about revenge. It was about redemption, not theirs, but mine. About proving that the girl they left in the snow hadn't just survived. She had become unstoppable. As my car pulled away from the curb, a profound peace settled over me, like the first calm after a storm. This wasn't the final chapter of my story. It was just the first page of a whole new book. This remarkable journey of betrayal, survival, and transformation has shown us that sometimes our darkest moments can lead to our greatest victories. Mia's story isn't just about revenge, it's about rising from the ashes stronger than ever before. From that freezing mountainside where she was left for dead, to becoming a powerful figure in the business world with the mystical guidance of Master Li, she proved that destiny works in mysterious ways. But perhaps the most powerful lesson isn't in how she brought her betrayers to justice. It's in how she discovered that true strength isn't about making others fall, but about how high you can rise. The Jade Pendant didn't just give her power, it led her to a new family with the Li clan, a purpose greater than revenge, and most importantly, it helped her find herself. As Mia's story comes to a close, we see that she didn't just survive, she thrived. She built an empire, found a new family, and learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others, but about building yourself up so high that they can't touch you anymore. If you enjoyed this incredible tale of transformation and justice, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that their worst moment could be the beginning of their greatest chapter. Until next time, remember, sometimes when people try to bury you, they don't realize you're a seed.